I'm Peter with Pro-Life Unity and ProLifeNews.tv, and I'm here with Ed Morrissey, and you were formerly with Captain's Quarters.
Right.
Currently with Hot Air.
That's right.
What can you tell us about what you write about and why people might want to see what you have to say?
Well, I write from a conservative perspective on many issues of foreign policy, domestic policy. Obviously, electoral politics is a big part of what we're doing at Hot Air right now, Peter. And it's exploding. And the traffic is just enormous at the moment. There's an awful lot of interest in this election. I think even more so after Sarah Palin was named John McCain's running mate. So we're covering all of that. There's two writers primarily that work at Hot Air, myself and Ala Pundit. And we have two different styles, we have two different perspectives, but we both enjoy what we're doing, and we do an awful lot of it every day.
Yeah, well, like you were saying, the Sarah Palin thing sort of reinvigorated things and drove up, I think, some enthusiasm in the country. And does that, in your opinion, show more that people are really liking a really conservative, pro-life, solid person, or is it maybe because she's a woman? Do you have a feeling for that?
I'm getting the feeling that it has a lot more to do with her bona fides on life. I really honestly think that a male candidate with the same type of record, for reform and on pro-life issues would have energized the base probably just as much. I'm just not sure that there was a candidate out there who really had that kind of a track record and an already executive experience, both reform and pro-life. The governor of my state, for instance, Tim Pawlenty, was mentioned quite a bit, especially in the last few days before John McCain announced his selection. Most people felt it was going to be a choice between Mitt Romney and Tim Pawlenty. And I can tell you, my governor would have been a terrific candidate for this position. Okay. And Tim Pawlenty's very strong on pro-life. He's a good guy on pro-life. He governs from more of a center-right, but you have to understand Minnesota to understand why that is. But he does a very good job in being a successful conservative in a state that is not conservative. The problem with Tim Pawlenty is that he doesn't have a track record of reform because, fortunately for Minnesotans, we don't have a track record of having corrupt government in our state. Liberal government, not necessarily wise government, yes, but not corrupt government. So through no fault of Tim Pawlenty's, he really doesn't have a big track record of reform the way that Sarah Palin does. I think it's that reform mentality that is really more the key than anything else, but the pro-life is a big, huge part of that reform. The problem with the Republican brand this year has been, the 6 years that they spent like drunken sailors when they were in charge of government in Washington, D.C. That was what we paid for in 2006 with the Democratic takeover. We needed to rebrand the Republican Party, legitimately rebrand the Republican Party, and the only way to do that is to elevate reformers to the top of the party. Yeah. So when you see the party leadership being transferred from George Bush, who is a good man but let spending get out of control, to John McCain, who's a budget hawk and a reformer, and to Sarah Palin, who has a track record of fighting political machines in her own state, of her own party, in order to clean up government. That, I think, sends a powerful message to Republicans that we are going to become, once again, the party of the contract with America, the party of Ronald Reagan, the party of smaller government, not wasteful spending, not pork barrel projects, not K Street projects.
Yeah.
That is what is, I think, really energizing the base.
And what about, I think that one of the things that we've been pushing for, and as far as Pro-Life News and Pro-Life Unity go, we also have the monthly Call for Life, and we encourage people to communicate with their representatives, not just push the button and walk away. We think it takes more than that, because otherwise it's 2 years, 4 years, whatever the case is, president, senator, congressman, they just get our vote and then walk away with it. Right. And whenever it comes to election cycle, right now the candidates are looking to us, and there's a card that's going around that has one of McCain's cards, and at the top, defending the right to life. When it's an election cycle, the pro-life issue rises to the top.
Yes.
Afterward,
well, I'll tell you why.
No,
but I'll tell you why. I mean, there's a mechanical reason for that. Is that the judiciary has the issue locked up, and that we can nibble around the edges in terms of parental notification laws, in terms of age-appropriate laws and that sort of thing. But we can't really get to the main issue because the judiciary has that locked in Roe v. Wade. Until you nominate judges who are willing to revisit that decision, and it's a bad decision. I mean, legally speaking, logically speaking, it is a bad decision. unless you get people to the point where you have judges that are willing to revisit that and reverse it and allow the issue to go back to the states, then you're right. That issue is really only going to come up in times of election. It's appropriate now that it's coming up for a presidential election because that's the level of person that you need to appoint the judges who are going to be willing to look at that decision and see it for the travesty that it was.
Yeah. Well, for those folks of you out there who are wondering about this and thinking, well, maybe it's not such a big deal, maybe we should sit the election out, or who cares if Obama gets elected, they'll set history. What will happen if Obama gets into office, and let's just not say a name, what would happen if a pro-abortion candidate gets into the office of the President of the United States? How does that affect America and the pro-life issues?
Well, and again, the big issue here is judicial appointments. The person who goes to the presidency has the power to nominate judges to the federal bench, both the district courts and the appellate courts, including the Supreme Court. The Democrats are almost certainly are going to still have a numerical advantage in the Senate after this election. The way that the structure of the election is, the Republicans are defending 21 seats, the Democrats are only defending 13, and we've had at least 2 or 3 retirements that we're going to have to, so we're not getting incumbents to run for some of those Republican seats. Almost impossible for us to take back control of the Senate in this election because of that. Yeah. So if you have a Democrat who's elected, a pro-abortion candidate, they're going to name judges who are going to be pro-abortion as well. Yep. And a Democratic Senate will pass them with no problem whatsoever. Instantly. If you have a Republican president in there, it's still going to be difficult to get really conservative jurists onto the Supreme Court especially. But at least you're going to have the names that are going to come to the Senate are not going to be really blatantly pro-abortion jurists. Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting first 2 years if John McCain wins and you have retirements on the Supreme Court and you have 2 or 3, well, I don't say Democrats, you have 2 or 3 liberal justices that look like they're about ready to retire. John Paul Stevens is 88 or 89 years old. Ruth Bader Ginsburg reportedly is in very good health. She's in her mid-70s, and she may want to retire off the bench so that she can, enjoy a retirement, and that would be fine with us, obviously. Also, David Souter apparently is considering retirement. So you have the possibility within the first term of having the 3 most liberal jurists on the Supreme Court retire. The question is, who comes in to replace them? And the opportunity here for pro-life voters is to make sure that John McCain is the person who's nominating the people that will replace those 3 very liberal jurists.
Definitely. And on top of that, one of the things I was talking about with Charmaine Yost was the fact that we're looking at not only the top positions, but all the thousands of positions that are underneath that. So it could just be a tsunami of pro-abortion people who get put into various kinds of offices. So that's what we're thinking would be a problem. How can people find out about where you are? What's your website?
We are at hotair.com. It's real easy to find, just hotair.com. And Ala Pundit and I are working every day to put up lots of new content. And quite frankly, I have trouble keeping up with the site. So you have to be there all the time in order to keep up with what we're writing.
Hotair.com.
Hotair.com.
That's pretty easy to go to. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, sir.
All right.